One of the hallmarks of narcissism is just how covert the abuse is. Like, it's one of those situations, if you find yourself being put under narcissistic abuse, it's just one of those situations where you know it's happening, but other people around you don't know it's happening. It's like shadow boxing. One of the things that makes narcissistic abuse so awful is just how covert it is, hidden it is, hidden in plain sight. And if you're a victim of narcissistic abuse, or if you're someone who is being targeted by agents of chaos, or what might be termed as flying monkeys, or what also might be termed as gang stalkers, if you find yourself in a situation like that, you might recognize that just about everything about you in your life becomes weaponized against you. You make a comment, that becomes weaponized against you. You start a club, that becomes weaponized against you. It's like no matter where you go, the abuse follows. And you're very aware of it because your life probably took a 180. Like, this abuse didn't necessarily, well, for some people, it crept up on them. But for those of you out there who the abuse didn't really creep up on you, it just kind of ramped up almost overnight. You will, first of all, you're probably one of the lucky ones. You're someone who can have a stronger grasp of reality, or get out of the web that these demons have tried trapping you in, because the abuse was so just sharp. It just has such a sharp incline that you're just able to have a deeper grasp of reality. While with someone else, basically, if you're someone whose life kind of flipped 180, you're like a frog that was thrown into a boiling pot. While unfortunately for many others, the pot just kind of they're thrown into a pot of cool water that just slowly heats up, and that's what really traps people, because it starts off with little things and then it just ramps up like crazy. But by then it's too late. But if you're lucky enough to have been like me, someone where the abuse just kind of started happening overnight, you're just able to see it better. Um, and I wanted to make this video on how agents of chaos, they really can't do anything without you. Um, Being a target of abuse, being a target of harassment, being a target of violence is never, it's never a fun situation. It's never cool. It's never okay. It doesn't make you stronger. It doesn't make you anything more than who you already were. It honestly, all it does is really break you down. It slows you down. It dysregulates you. I'm really so glad that there's this pushback against the narrative of pain making you stronger, because it really doesn't make you strong. I was strong before the abuse happened, and now I'm strong afterwards. Like, I'm really like there's no there's nothing that abuse really does that's positive to anyone. All it really does is just, it just creates negatives. It really doesn't do anything to help anyone. Something that my abusers like to do, because not only was it strangers, but my family got in on it too. And I think my family thought that by putting me through more abuse, I was going to somehow come out stronger, or I was going to, really ramp. This is, just the hallmark of dysfunction. This is how you know someone or something is dysfunctional, is when they think that trauma or abuse is somehow going to make you stronger. Because it doesn't. It really doesn't. Abused and traumatized people aren't strong. They're very weak, because being in that state of survival mode, it just doesn't it doesn't lend to, especially the higher pursuits of existence, um, it might put a fire under your belly to make sure that you can secure your base needs, but it doesn't allow you to achieve higher forms of existence. Which is why this idea, even though sometimes I entertain it, I'm really hesitant to, because anyone who knows anything about even a snippet, even anyone majority of us have experienced some pretty traumatizing things in our lives. Like, we know for a fact that that it's done nothing to it's done nothing to make us better people. It's only done things to make us worse people. So when people purposely put you through traumatic or painful or awful experiences thinking that it's going to make you stronger, like, these people are obviously, they're just misguided. They're just misguided. They're undereducated. They're it's not it's just not the move. It's not what you want to do when you want to make someone stronger. Um all that does is just break them down. Um, but my family, as dysfunctional as they are, I watched them, trying to put me through greater and greater forms of abuse and harm, and socially curated and very just. I just watched them, just all work together in tandem to try and put me through greater and greater and greater forms of abuse, thinking that by doing so, and covertly, and thinking that by doing so, they were going to make me stronger, make me more attuned to my studies, make me, I don't know, I'm not really too big on putting words in their mouths, or going into the why of why it is they did what they did, because something I always talk about on this channel is, you don't want to talk about the whys. Like, the whys they really don't matter. It's not really about you. The abuse that they put me through and are putting me through, it's not about me, it's about them. And just how broken and dysregulated and dysfunctional they are. Them and their partners, because they aren't working alone. But once again, when you're being put in these situations, whether it's by someone thinking that they're making you stronger when you're not, or someone thinking that they're helping you in any way, shape, or form when they're not. And honestly, once again, these people know that they're not. Like, they know that what they're doing is awful. They know that what they're doing isn't helping you. It's not making you stronger. It's really not having any positive effect in your life. But part of why they want to put you through that abuse and keep putting you through that abuse is because they want you to be weak. They want you to be hyper dependent upon them. Something that I always, tell people, especially if you're a victim of narcissistic abuse, or if you're targeted by agents of chaos, is a lot of the times, you'll go through a phase where you are questioning why, but you also go through a phase where you start to kind of like almost, hopefully you don't, you get the gist of it, but you might almost blame yourself for it happening. You might blame yourself for thinking, just trying to figure out ways of what you did wrong in order to elicit that response from people. But once again, the reason why I always say steer away from that is because the way that narcissistic abuse is constructed, there's really very little that people can do in life to kind of warrant that level of abuse. That level of abuse comes from people who just are just broken. Like, it's just really not about you. It's just really about broken people trying to break other people because they don't want to be broken alone. They want you to be broken with them. But moving on. So, being put through these forms of abuse is never fun. It's never great. But if you are, still hooked on the whys or things like that, I just wanted to just shed some light on something, which is that there are some people in this life who they are living this life for them. They are, they are in love with life. They are just trying to experience all that life has to offer. They're just going about their lives. Like they're just living their life, you know? And then there are those people who they don't really have a life. Um, Either at some point they just stop growing, stop focusing on internal growth, as or maybe they never focused on it before. Like one of the things that I'm learning, or that I've learned in life is one, just not only how lucky I was, but just how so many people were grew up in situations where they just never knew the beauty of discipline. And what I mean by that is not just the discipline that comes with study. I mean the discipline of like physical discipline. They don't know the beauty of um of psychological discipline. They don't know the beauty of moral discipline. They just don't know the beauty that comes with discipline in any shape, way, or form. And they don't know the beauty of self development or self growth or, you know, bettering yourself. They really just don't know these things. And so you come into, if you are someone that does know the beauty of these things, maybe you played sports or maybe you did something that was, you know, extremely demanding in terms of physical discipline, like ballet. And maybe you know the beauty of moral discipline because you maybe you grew up religious, or maybe you grew up in a home that practiced Buddhism or something like that. Like you just know the benefits of these different disciplines. And even if you're not following them to this day, at the end of the day, you know the beauty of discipline and you've had, you know, those disciplines in your life. But there are just these people who, and I guess I can start with an example from my childhood. You know, when I was growing up, you know, when I got to high school, I remember I became friends with this one dude who was honestly really obsessed with like things like weight loss and looking better and things like that. And as someone who kind of grew up playing outside, running around, being in sports, like, you know, worrying about my weight just wasn't something I did because, you know, I just didn't really need to. But, you know, as a woman, you know, as a female, like you know, your appearance is under perpetual scrutiny from the moment you're born to, you know, the day you die. You know, the term casket pretty comes to mind, like, you know, leaving behind, you know, in some of these songs, you know, live fast and die young and leave behind a pretty corpse. Like even in death, you know, women are just that, you know, that social gaze of constantly needing to be um pleasing to look at, you know, or objectified. Even in death, you know, just that gaze is still in our minds, you know. But moving on from that, at the end of the day, you know, there's just some people who were born knowing the beauty of discipline, and then there are those people that weren't. And if you were someone who was born knowing the beauty of discipline and the benefits of it, you might have tried cultivating it in your life in other ways. Maybe you wanted to really achieve things in terms of academics. Maybe you want to really achieve things in terms of music or sports. You just were someone who was just invested in your own development. Your development was just something extremely important to you. And as a consequence, you know, you just you learn to be okay with just you learn to just be okay with yourself. But there are these other people who they would think that their perpetual need to look outside of themselves for things is a virtue. Um, and hey, you know, there's nothing wrong with, you know, looking outside of yourself for certain things. You know, once again, like humans are social creatures. This is just what we do. But where I'm going with all of this is that there are some people who just take this to extreme levels. Like that childhood friend I was telling you about who was obsessed with his own weight and things like that. Um, he took this special intrigue in me because I just first of all, I had a very I don't give a shit type of attitude. I was very laissez faire. I was just very, you know, I'm very I don't know, just living this life, doing my own thing and whatnot. I think he took a special interest in me because I was, first of all, I was someone that was just more human. And I hate saying this, but there really was a difference between myself and some of the other kids, in that a lot of the other kids, they it was just a difference in upbringing. Because I, once again, I was, by the time I went to school with them, I had been all over the country, while for them they had spent their entire lives, in the same place. um and if they ever did go somewhere, it was just a visit. I had literally lived, spent years in multiple parts of the country by that time, and I was just a bit more I was just a little bit more socially advanced, I guess you could say. And it's funny because a lot of times, I would criticize myself on not being as socially adept and things like that. But really, what it wasn't that I wasn't socially adept. It's just I was constantly all my life being put in scenarios where I had to learn new ways to adapt to my social environment because it was constantly changing. And what that really did was it made me someone who's extremely socially adept, someone who is just so, I just have a very high levels of social intelligence. Um, Extremely high levels. And in retrospect, I'll constantly see myself criticizing myself for not being socially strong enough. But in reality, my levels are pretty fucking up there. And it's because of the fact that, as a youth, I spent so much time just living in different worlds. um, but back to this whole idea of, agents of chaos and narcissists, how it is that your the level of I was just a very individualistic person. I was just I was an individual. I was my own individual. If you talk to me, you could have a real conversation with me. Or I might even say something that someone else wasn't even thinking. Like, you could just I was just someone that you could. I always allowed the human in me to connect to the humanity in others. um I was just very, like, I was just, yeah, I was just very socially adept. Um, and whenever, I found myself in the presence of others, I really was that type of person. First of all, I didn't even have a phone for half of high school because of reasons. But basically, whenever I was in the presence of other people, it was like I gave them my full attention, which is crazy that that's something that really stands out, to people. But especially when you're a teenager and everyone has phones, like, it's really hard to, um, and all these other things that are, asking for people's attention and things like that. Like, in reality, one thing I've learned is just how socially inept so many people are. Um, and it's awful. And one of the things that, after narcissistic abuse is you might find yourself backpedaling in your own development. Like, once again, this is what I mean by, like, when I was talking about in a previous video of how agents of chaos and narcissists, they aren't fully formed adults. And so they don't want you to be a fully formed adult. They don't want you to be, they don't want you to just grow up. They don't want you to grow up because your existence, especially as a fully fledged adult, would call into question or force them to have to think and do and behave in ways that call for them to be more critically thinking, more conscious, more, it asks for more of them. Even though you aren't actually asking for them, they're just kind of like, projecting these ideas onto themselves. Your very existence just calls into question so much about themselves, and they hate that. But after being, targeted by these abusers, and he wound up being, someone who joined in on my harassment and abuse. He was someone that was really, really obsessed with just, just having, he was just really obsessed with just having access to every level of my life. Like this dude had really poor boundaries. I remember when we were in high school, he would like ask me for like the password to my devices, and it's just like, bro, you're not even my fucking boyfriend. Like, what the fuck? Like, why would I do that? Like, he was just so obsessed with. He would go through my things. Like, it was just crazy the level of just. Anyways, moving on. But that actually brings me to my next point, which is when you're a victim of narcissistic abuse, or when you're someone who's targeted by agents of chaos, you're more than likely somebody who has had so much of your life weaponized against you by people who are committed to misunderstanding you. And it might seem like everything you do becomes, once again, weaponized against you. Everything you say, everything you, everywhere you go, it's like there's just this perpetual abuse that's going on. This is also the difference between, this is where the line starts to get drawn between narcissistic abuse and realizing that you're being gang stalked or abused by agents of chaos. Is that narcissistic abuse is typically, it's in a place and it's in a person. Narcs typically, from what I've seen from people or heard from testimonials, is that narcs tend to operate on their own and they kind of just have their flying monkeys. But the thing that makes the abuse that I went through similar but different, which is why I always bring up agents of chaos, is that my abusers, one, they were never working on their own. They were a group of people working together. And then not only was it a group of people working together to try and abuse me, but then they wound up getting a whole host of other people. Like it became this whole affair. Like when honestly, I don't even feel the need to even say you wouldn't believe me, because it's like my channel is specifically for people who get it. Like there is some people who you're going to come across these videos, if you ever do, and you're more than likely going to be someone who just doesn't get it. Like you're someone who is, you just haven't seen the depravity or the levels of depravity that society can get to. Like you're just someone who, like, for you, the heights of horrible abuse is narcissistic abuse. The idea that it could go one step further is probably mind-boggling to the average person. But this channel is for those people who were abused in a way that's just a step above narcissistic abuse. You might hear people refer to it as gang stalking or things like that. And honestly, I don't know. A lot of those videos tend to focus on like the spiritual aspect of it and all. And hey, that's cool. I even like to do that here sometimes, but I'm the type of person where I need I'm just gonna it's just kind of hard for me to purely view things from a spiritual lens, because first of all, as someone who's really into technology and just the sciences in general, I recognize how those fields can be manipulated and used in ways to make you think that something spiritual or metaphysical is happening, but in reality it's not. You've just been targeted by a vigilante group of people who have power and access to um, not only the social human capital, but just the technological and financial capital to fuck with you because they want to. Um, and you would be surprised at just how depraved um, people can be. Like seriously, like some of this stuff, like yeah, you can call it demonic, but to be honest, human beings are pretty like we're pretty fucking awful. Like it doesn't even have to be a demon. Like humans are pretty fucking terrible creatures, and they can be very terrible to each other, especially in these cities, these major cities where people are so disconnected from each other. The idea of, it's just real easy to get, a bunch of strangers together in a city to get together and, try and fuck with someone's life because they just don't have that, they just don't have those levels of restraint or moral, or that developed of a moral compass, because they're just so, they're very detached. But back to the topic of you and why you're so important, or why it is that you were targeted by these people, if you find yourself still asking yourself those questions. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that as a as someone who is, highly individualistic, as someone who has their own life, as someone who seems pretty complete on their own, you're very interesting to agents of chaos or narcissists, because they aren't complete human beings themselves. They're probably really codependent people. Like, if you're very, highly individualistic, chances are, even if it's not narcissists or agents of chaos, you probably attracted a lot of codependence in your life. That dude was extremely codependent. I was a very individualistic or a very independent young girl at that time. And I think that attracted this, codependent male, this passive aggressive codependent male, because just being your own person, it really, I don't know, it just has this magnetic force. Like, I don't really know how to necessarily, put it into words, or if I thought about it a bit longer, these live streams are honestly just streams of consciousness. I really don't even have that many notes next to me, but in the future I plan on being more put together. Um but yeah, when you're just a very independent and hyper individualistic person, you just tend to have a magnetic force or magnetic qualities about you. And all my life, honestly, I've had these magnetic qualities about me. Um, I don't know why, but I've just always, I've just always, I could never just go under the radar. I don't know, despite how much I would like to, I just can't fly under the radar. I don't know why. I just can't. Um, but something about this abuse that you're being put through, and especially if you're someone who's kind of gotten used to not flying under the radar, is that um, part of the abuse is that they might try to isolate you. They might, there's a whole host of things. Honestly, when it comes to being targeted by agents of chaos, it's like everything that happens in narcissistic abuse, but then just up a notch. So while a narcissist might try to isolate you from your friends and family, but if you just move away from them, the abuse stops. With agents of chaos, they'll try to socially isolate you from society at large. Like, they want you to almost be invisible to the world. Like, they just take things up a notch on a grander scale, a grander scheme of things. Um and they'll sit there and they'll try to, abuse you um through the use of literally, through just complete, like, they literally just all, the amount of social capital that they have, they just all band together. Like, you know all oftentimes, especially, I guess some contemporary examples of this is like in South Korea. There was this incident that got international attention because there was this underground chat group of men who were drugging women, videotaping these women that were drugged, being sexually harassed or assaulted or raped, or things like that. And there's just this entire underground community of men who are just all either watching it take place, participating in it taking place. Like, people really don't understand just how depraved men and women have gotten in these times. Men are, well, first of all, they've always been depraved, but technology is just affording people the ability to be even more depraved without there being any real world consequences, because there's no way to, kind of track them unless you're a tech savvy person. Not even just tech savvy, but you even have to have the level of connection that'll the connects that allow you to even gain access to certain spaces and certain software and equipment and things like that. Like it just takes being, like these guys are very organized. And if you're someone who finds yourself thinking that you're a victim of some spiritual warfare or gang stalking and things like that, you may very well have just been targeted by a vigilante group of people who have access, once again, to just social and economic capital that allows them to not only get people involved in their hazing, um, but they're monitoring you. They've tapped your devices. They've, like I'm gonna make a video on the cyber stalking aspect of narcissists and agents of chaos, because I think that's a really important just topic to get into. And also I'm really into technology, so I would just like to go into all the ways that, your average person just becomes a victim of what they think is spiritual warfare, when in reality, you're just being fucked with by a group of, you know, adult children, grown children. You're just being fucked with by a group of people that want to play God. You're just being fucked with by a group of people that just have no boundaries, no morals. They're just fucking losers. You're just being targeted by losers, really. People who, they gain their life. And once again, this leads right back into the topic of this video. You're just being fucked with by people who your life gives them meaning, but their life doesn't give your life any meaning. Um, for you are just, you make their day, you make their life. Like I want to talk about one of my experiences with one of my recent flying monkey, one of my recent situations where I was being harassed or stalked again. I started a club at this one school, and I had a professor who was supposed to be my club's advisor, but really he was just a flying monkey. So I'm throwing this event where I am, showing people ways to, create their own toys using, just having this robotics workshop. And this workshop went on for hours. Like, I mean, people were there for literally several hours. And this club advisor of mine, this Professor Flying Monkey is what I'll call him. Professor Flying Monkey, he there are people coming in, but for some reason he felt the need to particularly point out this one individual. He was like, that guy, him right there, you see him? Yeah, he's going to be joining the workshop. And he didn't do that to anyone else or for anyone else, but I was just like, okay, like, I don't know why you're particularly pointing out this person. And honestly, after that, I was kind of on alert because I had been going through this abuse for so long that you just start to, you just kind of just know when, okay, here we go. So this person, this guy, he joins the workshop and things like that. And he's, just going around talking and stuff like that. And, he's connecting with other people, but I'm not giving this dude my number. I'm not really interacting with him that much. But, I'm just being decent. I'm being a decent human being to this person, but I just know something. Like, I'm just wondering what the motive is here. So this person is going around asking for everyone's number to use it as a facade for making it look like him asking for my number is just a normal thing, when in reality, he wanted my number particularly the entire time. And the reason for that is, and he wanted to connect with me the entire time. And the reason for that is because he wanted to pretend like he was just this. And it's so weird because, like, actually, I won't even go into that. But basically, he just wasn't someone I was attracted to. But anyways, I kind of felt like he was almost trying to get me attracted to him. Like, I don't know. It was just weird. But point is, this situation that I was in, this club situation I was in, it became a breeding ground once again to kind of further extend the abuse, because this person wound up, when I was talking to them about, coming back for, like, I didn't really, connect with this person after we had met. But months later, when I needed some speakers at an event, I was like, hey, let me reach out to this person. And when I did, they kind of just went on this diatribe. And they were talking about these extremely, like, just things that were just so personal. They were just things that once again, narcissistic abuse, the one of the most insidious things about it is just how subversive it is. It's just how under the rug it is. And basically this person was just going on a tangent about things that just personal details that he wouldn't have access to unless somebody was giving him these details about me. And I was just like, oh boy, here we go again. Here's another. But at that point, I had already reached a point where I was kind of like, I don't give a fuck. And I was just like, yeah, you're coming to the event or not? Like, are you gonna be one of the speakers or not? And of course he didn't wind up being one of the speakers. The whole point of him joining this entire thing was just so that he could try and get me to try and seduce me and then, you know, hurt me through pretending like he's just by going on one of those diatribes. And when he realized that I wasn't going to chase him, or when he realized that I wasn't going to just speak to him, you know, regularly or constantly contact, I don't even like, I really don't understand it sometimes. Like something I've been going through, the way that abuse has transformed is I've just been having a situation where it's like, I'm constantly being baited by men to try and talk to them. Like it's just the weirdest thing in the world. It's like, I'm not gonna pursue you. I'm not even interested in you. Like it's just the weirdest thing ever. But once again, it doesn't really make any sense for me to go into specific details about my abuse because narcissistic abuse is extremely personal. And that's the thing that really, like, there's some things that are, you know, hallmarks of it, like, you know, social construction, when people try to create these scenarios that seem like they're normal but in reality they're not normal. You know, that's a hallmark of it. But the attack is so personal that going into details doesn't really, it just almost serves no real purpose. Although, you know, every now and then I like to, because every now and then, you know, you do hear someone's story and you're just like, oh wow, I had the exact same situation. But once again, my abuse isn't necessarily, I lump it in with narcissistic abuse because it kind of goes with it. But the abuse I'm going through is a step above narcissistic abuse in that I'm not being targeted by a person. Like a lot of people talk about romantic partners. I don't have a romantic partner to be narcissistically, but to behave as a narcissist to me. What I have is a community. You know, some people have narcissistic partners. I have a narcissistic community. Um, and this community is just invested in me. They're invested in my life. They're invested in what I'm doing. Everything, like I literally just make their life. Like I'm just one of the main characters in their life. Like they are really just deeply invested in me. And once again, this just goes back to that whole video we were talking, or the whole topic of this whole video, which is ultimately about how everything about you, these people are observing, they're weaponizing, they're just obsessed with you. And the thing about narcissistic abuse is that it's just these people, they try creating all of these scenarios, they try trapping you in all of these different situations, they try binding you to them, but all that really happens is that they're the ones that are bound to you. You know, these are people, you know, the reason they're so obsessed with the story of your life is because they don't have a life of their own. Like something that always just gets me is like, you know, I'm really not like, I'm just not it just doesn't make much of a difference to me what other people are doing with their lives. Like I'm interested in, you know, the people's stories. I'm interested in humans, you know, in a general sense, but I'm not interested in an obsessive sense. You know, kind of like, you know, there's some people when they listen to music, they have to know everything about an artist. They're like obsessed with that artist. Like they need to meet them. They need to watch all their documentaries, buy all their merch. write them letters. They're just these really obsessive fan types of people. And when you become a target of an agent of chaos, someone who's just that a type of abuse that's just a step above narcissism, it's like you get your own fan club. And you have a group of people that are obsessed with everything. Like, you literally, your life gives them purpose. They get up in the morning thinking about you. They get up at night thinking about you. They dream about you. They literally, everything about their life is just interacting with you is like a highlight to their life. Their lives have little purpose beyond what interactions with you bring to them. Your life has meaning on its own, but their lives only have meaning because you exist. They are just, they're fans. They're fans. That's what it really comes down to. They're obsessive fans, and honestly, they're haters. They're haters. And it's just, your life is just a pinnacle for them. Like, they, once again, the only type of people who would ever, and I mean ever, become this obsessed with socially engineering your interactions, or this obsessed with, putting you through different forms of abuse, this obsessed with just weaponizing every single one of your thoughts, your words, your actions, this obsessed with pretending like they're your personal God, like they're this invisible hand guiding your life. The only people that act this obsessive are people with no lives. These are people who literally spend, and they don't want you to have a life. This is the reason why they put you through so much abuse, because you're someone who had a life, but they're the type of person, they kind of say, like, when you love a flower, you're not supposed to pick it. You're just supposed to nurture it, because once you pick it, it dies. They're the kind of people that just keep picking at flowers. Like, they love you. And I know it feels weird to say this because of the amount of abuse that you've gone through. And so I guess maybe saying love isn't the right word, but what I mean is they're obsessed with you. They want to have you. You're like that flower in the field, and they want to pick you and put you in a vase, even though they know that once they pick you and put you in that vase, you're going to die in a week. It doesn't matter to them. They just want to have you. They want to have your life. They want to have your attention, and they want you all for them. You're like their personal little, like their personal just object of, of obsession. You're just an object of obsession for them. You're like a little idol to them. And human beings, they're just not good with maintaining good things. Like, humans, like, we can be a very parasitic species. We're just the type of people that when we like something, we like it so much to the point where we destroy it. And that's what these agents of chaos are. They're so obsessed with your life. They're so obsessed with who you are. They're so obsessed with playing a role in the story of your life that they become obsessed to the point where they destroy you. Like, they want to, they might even have it in their mind, like they want to help you or things like that. But in reality, they just want to destroy you. Everything about their actions is just, I want to own you. I want to destroy you. I want to control you. I want to be your God. Like, they're just people who, they're just power tripping. They just don't have respect for boundaries. These people, once again, like, if you ever find yourself asking, like, why is this happening to me? Why? Look, the why has nothing to do with you and everything to do with them. These are empty, hollow people. They are hollow. They don't have purpose. They don't have, or their only purpose is you. And people like you, like, they're just obsessed with you. They're obsessed with you. And it might even go to the point of, like, idolizing you and then discarding you. At the end of the day, these are just people who, they just want to ruin a good thing. They don't know how to, it's kind of like people that have these addictions, like drinking every now and then, sure, that's cool. Smoking every now and then, sure, that's cool. But those people that just form their identities around consumption, or their identities around, just these things that aren't good to do on a regular basis. Like, just as someone who isn't an addict in any way to much of anything, addiction is a really perplexing, or just kind of almost a confusing thing to me, because it's just hard for me to wrap my mind around liking something so much to the point where I become addicted to it. But that's what these agents of chaos are. They have an addiction to you. Um, and they're just, once again, they're just obsessed with you. You give their life purpose and meaning. You are why you're part of why they wake up in the morning, and why, everyone thinks that, oh, I want to meet someone who, you know I'm the reason they wake up, and the reason they go to bed. I'm the reason they work so hard. But that's fine when it's someone that loves you. But these people, once they don't really love you, they're just obsessed with the idea of you. And so what happens is, you have these people who are, every morning when they wake up, they're thinking about you. They work so hard, socially engineering your life, because, they're obsessed with you. But it's just like, at the end of the day, like, these people are just, they're just broken. They're just hollow. The obsession is just, it's just because they just don't have enough going on in their life. Um, And another thing I'll talk about is also their need for validation, and how your life will get them that. A lot of the times you sit there, you might be wondering on the internet, and you might see something, you might go like, oh my God, like, how did they know that? Like, what? Like, how did, like, how did anyone else know this, or that I did this, or that I do that? And part of how people get that hyper relatable content is once again by gang stalking. It's once again by once again, like how we were talking about that situation that happened in Korea, where these guys had this underground group where they were videotaping these girls, and these girls had no idea that they were being of what was about to happen to them, that their entire night they were being targeted, and that they were being groomed just to be a spectacle for someone, some random audience. This is happening to people really in real life. Everyday people are being groomed into these reality TV show stars without even knowing it. And if you are aware of it, it's like, how dare you? Let's put you through more situations to dysregulate you and make you think that it's spiritual warfare, when in reality you're just being targeted by a group of no lives that are organized. That's all it is. You're just being, like those South Park episodes of those ugly ass losers that are in their basement. Those, old ideas or memes about what a programmer looks like. Like, that's your audience. Something you might find out is that a lot of people that are targeting you, like, especially for me, like, a lot of them are really old people. And if they aren't old people, they're losers. They're like the type of people that are fat fucks with anime waifus, or, they're the type of people that, once again, they're undereducated, or they're just losers, and it's just, and, you can have money and still be a loser. Like, a lot of these, anyone that's ever, been around rich kids, how much losers they are. Like, money does not make a person. It really doesn't. And so, yeah, you're just being targeted by a bunch of losers that don't really have a life of their own, that don't really have much purpose beyond what you give them. Um, and this is their thing. Like, they just really don't have a strong core themselves. So they have to go after other people, because it's like, they just don't have souls. They don't have really, yeah, that's just who they are. And you're just being siphoned for information. I'm actually going to make this a different video, but I just wanted to even go into that a little bit here, is that there are people who use your life for social currency. They think that by watching you day in and day out, everything that you're doing, they can go ahead and create content that is relatable. And basically, they turn stalking you into an income stream. By watching you day in and day out, by looking at your what you write, what you type, they can kind of get an idea into the psyche of, human beings in a way that, being a part of a by choosing to be part of a social experiment that they can't. Because one of the things that, you ever done like statistics or anything like that, one of the margins of error is just that you're really, you know, people are always giving these curated answers. They're always giving these curated kind of just experiences and things like that. But what if you could just literally watch another human being day in and day out for years? You would get to see them in this uncurated, in their natural, quote unquote, natural environment. And you would be able to, get just first of all, from watching them, you would be able to relate to them in quite a few things. Like, oh yeah, I'm that messy too. Oh yeah, I pick my nose too. Oh yeah, I spread my butt cheeks to fart too sometimes. Like, you would just be able to be watching their life and just be like, hey, like I recognize myself in that person. And if I recognize myself in that person, everyone else will. Or hey, that person did something that was interesting. And if I'm interested in it, then everyone else will. And they use your life for clout. They're using you for clout. You give them clout. Like, this is what I mean by, they're obsessed with you. You give them clout. You give them purpose. You're literally like a form of currency for them. But even apart from that, it's like, well, that's just kind of the point there. If you're ever wondering, if you're ever feeling some type of way about, why it is that you're being targeted, it's because you're a form of clout for them. You're, whether they're using the information they're getting from you to whether they're monetizing the information that they're able to extract from you, whether it is that they're, like, it's just, once again, you're just a form of social currency. You're like a way for them to have a life without them actually doing something. You're like a reality TV star for them. The issue is that it's against your will in many cases, but these people don't care. At the end of the day, these people don't give a fuck. Like, they don't care. You wouldn't be in a situation that you were in if they actually cared. You're in a situation that you're in because they don't care. You're being targeted by who you're being targeted by because they don't give a fuck. They only care about their interests. They only care about, their desires. Your desires be damned. Matter of fact, how dare you have an issue with what they're doing? Like, how dare you not want to be a reality star? How dare you not want to be their personal sex worker? How dare you not want to be their personal cult machine? Like, how dare you not want to be their, their ideal machine? Like, these people are fucking, they're entitled as all hell, and they will sit there and project every single bit of that onto you. Once again, something I was talking about in a previous video, but that I'll say again here, is that these people are really invested in turning you into them because they have this idea of, if you could do what they were doing, you would do it. Like, they seriously believe that if you don't have there's nothing, you're not more moral than them. They honestly believe that you're not more moral than them. They honestly believe that you're not more controlled than them. They honestly believe that you would do the same thing that they're doing if you had the opportunity to do it. Not only is this false, but it's just what lends to their they need that narrative in order to keep doing what they're doing, because without it, they would have to question. Without it, they would have to do some serious introspecting. Without it, it will cause too much shame, too much doubt. This is why they also search through your life so much once they feel, like I had this one previous video that I just did on critical thinking and why it is that narcissists, or why it is that agents of chaos hate you critically thinking. And a lot of that is because they don't, if you do that, then more than likely you are, you're analyzing things that they relate to and they feel offended by that. And it's basically something that they like to do is they try to put you in these situations. Like one of the situations, like once again, I'm just going to use an example. Basically, my harassers ganged up on me, a person that they don't know, to try and lay low. So I had this one dude who honestly thought that I didn't know that he was one of my like, I don't know why people keep thinking that they. Anyways, once again, their egos, like in order to do this, in order to implement this type of abuse, your ego has to be through the fucking roof. So it doesn't really surprise me that their egos are so high to think that they're honestly brilliant enough to perform this type of abuse and to think that someone wouldn't find out. But one of my abusers, he tried to try to get me to report an account of someone that I didn't even know, and it's like, and I did it. But the thing is, I'm not fucking stupid, and reporting a random account is just not the same as, because someone told you to do so, it's just not the same as ganging up and harassing on a young woman and trying to socially engineer her life because someone told you to do so, or because like these people, once again, they're just constantly looking for ways to validate their decision. They're constantly looking for ways to validate why it is that they behave like how they behave, or why it is they do like how they do. They're constantly looking for validation, and part of getting themselves that validation is by putting you into these socially engineered scenarios and testing you to see if you will make mistakes that are similar, that they will consider similar to what they're doing, when in reality they're not similar to what they're doing at all. Like when you step into a playing field that they've gone, the lengths that they've gone to, it's just a whole other ball. It's just not the same thing. It's really not. But once again, these are empty people that never became full adults, and they don't want you to become a full adult. And because of that, in addition to their huge egos, they're going to sit there and put you through scenario after scenario, case after case. They're just looking for validation. They're just looking for to be able to say, see, she did that, and therefore what I'm doing isn't so bad. Like they're just constantly, like they're literally like children. They just need constant validation. They know what they're doing is wrong. This is the reason why I don't call them narcissists. I call them agents of chaos, because they're very aware that what they're doing is wrong. They know that they're wrong. They know it. They know it. It doesn't matter. They're justified in everything that they do, no matter how many lives they screw over, no matter how many people that they fuck with, no matter what they do, no matter how many lives they destroy, no matter how much trauma they put you through. At the end of the day, it's all justified because you're not perfect. Nana boo boo. Like, it's the most childish shit ever. Like, you're literally, like, if you could see the faces of all your abusers, if you could watch their life, you would see nothing but losers. Like, literally, I promise you. Like, and that's something that really helped me get over this abuse. Some people talk about 40 years this, 40 years that. Like, that's too long. That's really too long in my opinion. And even when I was going through the abuse, the thing that made it really bad wasn't necessarily the abuse itself. It was who was doing the abusing. Like, it was realizing that my family was in on it that put me through the most psychological distress, because loyalty is a really big thing to me, and I'm extremely loyal to my family. Like, even if they've done something wrong, it's like, I'm not going to condone what they did, but it's just, we can handle it in the family. Like, like, you're not, depending on what it is now, not everything is, something you just deal with in the family. But some things you just gotta, hand them to the streets for. But it's just watching my family, do what they've done to me and what they are doing to me. That's what put me through the psychological distress. It wasn't necessarily because I know for a fact that my abusers are losers. Like, only losers do the type of shit that they're doing. Like, seriously. Like, I know it sounds pretentious or weird, but to be honest, like, you really, like, if you could see the face of your abusers, if you could see the lives that they're living, you would know that they are just, you wouldn't want to trade places with them. So once again, yeah, interactions with you are what give their life meaning. Keep living your life. Don't let these people control you. Like, you're fine. You'll be fine. Honestly, it's fuck them.